Welcome to the channel where powerful stories come to life. Get ready for truth, emotion, and transformation, one story at a time. Let me tell you something that few people have the courage to admit. The real problem in many companies isn't low sales or tough competition. It's the disrespect that grows silently behind the scenes. And once that disrespect takes root, my friend, no goal is achieved, no customer returns, no team thrives. But what if I told you that the owner of a snack bar discovered this in the most shocking way possible? In disguise, he entered his own business like any regular customer and witnessed a scene that would change everything. Now, pay close attention. What he did next wasn't firing, shouting, or threatening. It was something much bigger and completely counterintuitive. Instead of cutting heads, he decided to turn the culture upside down. And what happened from there became a reference even for other companies that now try to copy what he built. In this story, you'll discover how small actions have the power to create gigantic transformations, both at work and in your personal life. And I'll tell you this up front. By the end, you'll look at your own behavior in a whole new way. The boss arrived early that day, but not as the boss. He put on a regular shirt, a simple cap, and walked in through the front door like any customer would. Inside, the smell of fresh coffee mixed with the chatter of the attendants. But within minutes, what was meant to be a discreet visit turned into a shock. Behind the counter, two young employees were mocking an elderly lady struggling to place her order. The stories he had always tried to build in that snack bar were being threatened by such petty behavior. Their words were cutting, though whispered with muffled laughter. "Look at the size of her glasses, must be 1,000 degrees." And they burst into laughter. Meanwhile, the lady tried to read the menu with difficulty, visibly embarrassed. It's in these small actions that the true culture of a business is revealed. This wasn't just coffee being served. It was a stage where lives and stories of customers crossed paths every day. Sadly, some stories of shame were being written. With a firm gaze, the boss maintained his disguise. He wouldn't act in the heat of the moment. This, my friend, is what separates ordinary leaders from transformational leaders. Control in the face of indignation. He knew this episode was just the tip of the iceberg. Deep down, he already sensed there was something much bigger behind that disrespect. What he saw next only confirmed his suspicions. As the regrettable scene continued before his eyes, the boss, with the skill of someone who has learned to observe human nature, discreetly pulled his phone from his pocket. He turned on the camera, positioning it naturally as if checking messages. He recorded every word, every laugh, every gesture. The stories he so carefully nurtured in that snack bar were now being captured in a footage the employees wouldn't even notice. "She must be related to Mr. Magoo, no other explanation," one joked, while the other exaggeratedly mimicked the lady's slowness. The boss felt a bitter mix of disappointment and sadness. How could a place built to welcome stories of all kinds allow contempt to take over? It became clear that the company's culture had been poisoned, and that recording would become the seed for a much greater change. But you see, it's in moments like these that true leadership is defined. Many would have exploded on the spot, fired them right there at the counter. But the boss knew. The impact wasn't in yelling in the heat of the moment, but in leading each one to deep reflection. Because, my friend, sometimes the greatest lesson doesn't come from scolding but from holding up a mirror. And that's exactly what he began preparing afterward. The next day, the boss called a general meeting. The atmosphere was routine. No one suspected a thing. The employees entered the room one by one, carrying the calm air of those who have no idea what's coming. In the center of the room, the boss waited, now without disguise. He was the one who had stood in line the previous day, hearing every word. And now he was about to turn those stories into a powerful lesson. He calmly started the meeting. He said he had recently visited the snack bar and, like any customer, experienced the service firsthand. Faces began to change. Some exchanged uneasy glances. Then he revealed, "Yesterday I was in line. I heard every word said about that lady." Silence fell. It was no longer the boss speaking. It was their own conscience knocking at the door. This is where many leaders fail. Direct confrontation can trigger defensiveness and denial, but when the mirror is placed in front of them, the truth weighs on its own. And that's exactly how he led the next step, because the stories that would be shown next left no room for excuses. And my friend, the room grew even more tense. Without rushing, the boss picked up the remote and turned on the projector. On the screen, the footage he had recorded started playing before everyone. It wasn't hearsay. It wasn't "someone said." It was their own voices, mocking the lady cruelly. The once busy room became tomb silent. That recording left no space for justifications. The stories they might try to invent could no longer be told. As the video played, the weight of their own words echoed in each person present. Some lowered their heads, others swallowed hard. The discomfort was visible. Shame began to take over their faces. And here comes a powerful lesson. Humans may try to dodge responsibility, but when faced with their own exposed actions, the mask falls. That's when true learning begins. The boss then paused the video and simply looked at the group in silence. He didn't need to raise his voice or threaten. The image spoke for itself. It was time to face what had been built, or rather, what had been destroyed, in the company's culture. And as we'll see, this story still had much to reveal about the root of the problem. Now, with everyone in silence, the boss began to speak like a true mentor. He explained that the episode with the elderly lady wasn't the real problem. It was just the symptom. The root lay in the culture that had been slowly neglected. Small comments, daily jokes, lack of proper training, and above all, the absence of genuine empathy. The stories that should have been about care were turning into tales of neglect. He gave practical examples, leaving no room for doubt. When an elderly person takes time to place an order, what do? Do we present the menu patiently or roll our eyes? When a visually impaired person walks in, do we offer help or leave them to fend for themselves? He questioned. The simple, direct questions hit like arrows. It was impossible not to see oneself in them. Each one was forced to reflect on the stories they had helped to build, or to destroy. And here comes the crucial point. A company's culture doesn't rot overnight. It decays silently through small daily concessions. And the owner knew that if he truly wanted change, punishment wouldn't be enough. He needed to re-educate. And that's exactly the bold and unconventional path he decided to follow from that moment on. Instead of giving in to the easy impulse of summary dismissals, the owner proposed something much deeper and more transformative, an intensive behavioral re-education program. Right there, he was planting a new seed for the stories of that snack bar. He brought in empathy specialists, invited speakers who had personally experienced prejudice, and instituted weekly humanized service training. Now, each employee would be challenged to see every customer as a human being, not just another order in the system. He gave simple, practical examples. When an elderly person arrives, don't wait for them to ask for help. Offer it beforehand. When a customer seems insecure, don't pressure them with impatience. Guide them gently. True excellence lies in attention to detail. These small actions create grand stories of care, the kind of narrative that goes viral in a positive way, attracts customers, and transforms businesses. Of course, not everyone embraces profound change overnight. At first, there was resistance, skeptical looks, and even some who thought it was all unnecessary. But the owner knew, intelligent repetition shapes behavior. And as you'll see, little by little, the first signs of transformation began to emerge. As the weeks went by, something beautiful started to blossom in that environment. The employees, once indifferent, now greeted every customer with a genuine smile. It was no longer an act. It was awareness. When an elderly customer approached, an attendant would immediately assist them with patience, explain the menu calmly, and, if needed, kindly suggest options. The stories of disdain gave way to stories of care and warmth. There was, for instance, Mrs. Lords, who entered with her walker and was surprised by a young employee who promptly pulled out her chair, helped with her order, and even brought her a glass of water without her having to ask. Small gestures like this echoed behind the scenes as true symbols of change. Each new customer interaction became an opportunity to write a story of respect. And the most curious thing? The employees themselves began to share these stories among each other. They took pride in the compliments they received, the customers' gratitude, and the new reputation the snack bar was beginning to build. And as you'll notice, this transformation soon began to attract attention far beyond the doors of that establishment. It didn't take long for the internal change to spill outward. The local media, always on the lookout for inspiring stories, discovered what was happening at the snack bar. Soon, reports surfaced telling how a simple re-education program had transformed customer service and created an exemplary environment of care and empathy. Images of employees assisting elderly customers and smiling patiently spread across social media. Former customers who had stopped coming began to return. "Now I come back here with pleasure," said Mr. Antonor, a 78-year-old man who used to avoid the place out of fear of being mistreated. The stories of overcoming and change went viral. Local influencers started visiting the snack bar to showcase the case of transformation that was inspiring other businesses in the city. And like every true transformation, the recognition didn't stop there. Entrepreneurs from other sectors began to seek out the owner to understand the method he applied. He knew, however, that this turnaround was only possible because he addressed the root, not just the symptom. And there was still a greater lesson behind it all, one that he would start to share as part of his leadership vision. In every lecture, meeting, and casual conversation, the owner repeated the same message. True success isn't just in profit, but in the dignity with which every customer is treated. He understood that solid businesses are built on non-negotiable values. The stories of that snack bar now served as a living example of how respect, empathy, and humanized leadership generate results far beyond finances. He used real examples to illustrate his message. Think about Apple. Behind the technology, the focus has always been on user experience. Or Disney, where every service detail is designed to enchant. Why not apply the same logic to our counter, our coffee, our daily stories with customers? This way, employees not only understood but took pride in being part of something greater. Over time, many employees began applying the lessons even outside of work, at home, with friends, in their everyday relationships, because, as he often said, a culture of empathy doesn't belong solely within the four walls of the workplace. And that's when the deepest reflection of this story began to emerge, touching something even more profound in everyone's lives. In the end, what seemed to be just a customer service crisis became a true school of life. The employees, once inattentive, now understood the transformative power of small gestures. The stories of that snack bar were no longer about orders taken or lines managed, but about people being welcomed, respected, and valued. And this change didn't stay within work hours. It echoed through families, friendships, and how each person came to view others. The owner always said, "Every person who crosses our counter carries a world of stories within them. It's up to us to decide whether we'll be one more chapter of pain or of care." Simple yet powerful, like the young employee who started visiting his grandfather more often, or the attendant who began helping elderly neighbors with their groceries. Small actions with enormous effects. And here's the great insight. When you transform the way you see others, you transform your own life. And as you'll realize, this story isn't exclusive to that snack bar. It can be the beginning of a much greater change, even in your own journey. Now I sincerely ask you, what kind of stories are you helping to build in your daily life? Have you been the one who welcomes or the one who judges? The difference, my friend, may lie in a simple smile, in truly listening, in a small gesture that seems insignificant but transforms someone's day, and often, their life. And if you think this is just pretty talk, look around. The greatest leaders you admire are exactly those who understood the value of true respect. So here's today's direct challenge. Are you ready to be the leader of your own change? Are you prepared to transform your relationships at work, at home, and with everyone you encounter? Or will you keep turning a blind eye and sweeping the problem under the rug? The choice is yours. The stories you're going to write from here on depend on the decisions you start making now. If this message resonated with you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss the next stories. I'll bring here always with truths no one dares to say, but that can practically and truly transform your life.